My bracket's busted. I don't know about you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. It is Jackstown, and glad you could join me for this video. We can all express our frustrations because, yeah, the first weekend of March Madness, was great because of the upsets and the chaos, because it's definitely been very chaotic. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure all your brackets are busted just like mine. I mean, my bracket got destroyed this weekend. I mean, it was wild. The first two rounds of March Madness were wild. Brackets busted everywhere. Several potential champions and Final Four teams went out in the first weekend of March Madness, and it's good to be back. But I guess because we didn't have March Madness last year and 2 years ago, it wasn't that chaotic. The March Madness gods decided to even it out, I guess, and have a bunch of crazy results. A lot of unexpected things happening, and just overall just a lot of chaos. And so I thought for today's video, I was planning on doing this before the weekend even started. I was planning on making a video where I recap the first two rounds of March Madness and compare it to how my bracket did. But little did I know I would really just be remorsing at my bracket right here. I mean, just expressing my condolences to my own bracket because, oh boy, it got destroyed. So yeah, I thought we could still do the same thing for fun. If your bracket's still alive and you're still doing well, congratulations. But I'm sure many of you do share my frustrations in terms of how poorly my bracket did. But then again, it has been a great tournament because I said before, the best part of March Madness is the upsets, is the unpredictability, and just the wild stuff that can happen. Which is exactly why it's called March Madness, of course. So if you can put aside the bias towards rooting for your team and seeing your champion and runner-up in Final Four teams, if you can take away the fact that you were rooting for them and you have a bias towards them, and if they lose, you're like, oh, this is why I hate the tournament. If you take that away and just enjoy it as an objective fan, I think you probably, like me, did at the same time really enjoy the first round. So I thought we could recap kind of all the games briefly, because or else that would take forever, kind of give my thoughts on it, on every game and every matchup, and also predict the Sweet 16. We can do a second chance bracket because a lot of people are doing that as well, and this year we're going to need it the most probably because a lot of us are going to need a second chance because we probably got a lot of predictions wrong. So I thought, yeah, we got a bracket here that I made, I think, on Tuesday, about a week ago. And let's just, I'll give you like I said, my analysis on everything that happened and just my reactions. And let's see how my bracket did. I think I'm in the 20th or 30th percentile, so not completely terrible, but still pretty bad. All right, let's start off with the first round. We had Gonzaga, Norfolk State. Gonzaga won, absolutely killed them, and that was obvious. I predicted it correct, just like probably everyone in the entire universe. Guys, to be honest, by every passing day, I have a new and increasing sense of appreciation for how difficult and admirable it was for UMBC to beat Virginia, the 16-1, because it not only are most 16-1 games like the 16 loses, obviously, they've lost every 16-1 matchup except for UMBC over Virginia, like I said, but the games aren't even close. Like every year, they're all blowouts. Like I don't even watch those games. The fact that UMBC hung in the game, kept it even close was impressive, let alone win by 20 points. So that's just crazy. Every day I have a new sense of appreciation for that because the 16-1 games, like they usually are, were just absolute blowouts. So kudos to UMBC. Yeah, Gonzaga easily won. Oklahoma, Missouri. This was the only pick I actually changed. I started off picking Oklahoma in the video. That was the only pick I changed after I made the video was Missouri, only because I found out one of Oklahoma's top scorers wasn't going to play. So I thought, it's already a 50-50 game anyways, but maybe that leans towards Missouri, little advantage for Missouri. But, it was a close game, but it still didn't matter. Oklahoma won a 50-50 game. Not really mad about that. All right, Creighton, UCSB, this one hurts a little bit because I really liked UCSB. I actually had them in the Sweet 16. If you would have asked me, I actually had all four number 12 seeds winning, but if you would have asked me what 12 seed I was the most confident in winning, it really was UCSB, and they almost pulled it off against Creighton. They didn't play a great game. They were down 10, but they came back, and they took like a 6-point lead with a few minutes left, but then Creighton got it back themselves. UCSB had a chance to win the game down with like 5 seconds left, and they missed like a layup, and it was unfortunate, disappointing, a little frustrating, so UCSB just could not quite pull off the upset, but still was a good game, and they got close. They showed why they were a very good 12 seed. All right, Ohio, Virginia. I did predict this upset, and that's exactly what happened. Virginia, most years Tony Bennett, his strategy is to obviously have them play great defense. They have an elite defense, but unlike their championship team, most other years they actually have definitely have offensive struggles, and that's exactly the reason why this year and in years past except for 2019. They were vulnerable to get upset because when your offense goes cold, it's just not going to work out. You can't go far, and sometimes you'll go cold and lose to a lower seed, and Ohio had a very good offense. This was a great game. Ohio was down all game, came back and won, so I'm glad I predicted that. USC and Drake. Now, I was high on USC. I actually had them as my Cinderella team in this bracket, and after the first two games, I'm very happy that I went with that pick because they really showed that they can hang with anyone and have a chance to go all the way. Yeah, Drake, the first four team, they just looked out of gas. USC comfortably won. They were ahead seemingly most of the game, so it wasn't really much in doubt there. Kansas, Eastern Washington. I did pick Kansas, but Eastern Washington gave them a surprising scare. I really didn't expect that. The Groves brothers, Tanner Groves, Jacob Groves, they both played really well. I didn't really know who they were, but they gave them a scare. They were ahead most of the game. Kansas had to make a little run towards the end to really take the lead for good and win the game. All right, Oregon VCU. I did have Oregon, but I feel really bad for VCU. Obviously, this was a no game. There was no game, no contest because VCU had the COVID outbreak, as I'm sure a lot of you know. Yeah, that's why I feel bad because VCU is always, they usually threaten teams during the turn. They're always a threatening, scary seed. Usually they're a lower seed, but they're scary for their seeding usually. So I thought, they had a chance to beat Oregon. It was close to a 50-50 game. So I really feel bad that they didn't get to show how that they were deserving to make the tournament because they obviously were. That's why they're in the tournament. So they could have made a run. I feel bad for them, but I did get the pick right. But I don't feel good about it just because and it's never good to win by forfeit. So anyways, Iowa, Grand Canyon. I did have Iowa beating Grand Canyon. They won this first game exactly how I thought they would win, strictly outscoring the opponent as they won 86-74. All right, moving down to the East region, first round, Michigan, Texas Southern. Maybe the most vulnerable one seed. A lot of people thought. But they weren't. I don't think anyone thought they'd lose to Texas Southern, and they didn't. They won comfortably. So I think everyone had that right. LSU St. Bonaventure. Now a lot of people thought that the winner of this game would probably beat Michigan and maybe even make like a somewhat deep run, maybe to the Elite Eight or even possibly the Final Four. I thought LSU was more likely to make that run because they were the higher scoring team. They're a great offensive team, and they beat St. Bonaventure pretty comfortably. It was not as close as I thought. A lot of people thought that game was a toss-up. I kind of did too, as most 8-9 matchups are, but LSU won pretty comfortably. So Colorado, Georgetown. I said Georgetown, like I said, all 12 seeds I had winning, and that didn't happen. Georgetown, I didn't base it on stats. I just went strictly on momentum. But their luck ran out. Colorado just couldn't stop missing. They just couldn't miss a shot. They made all their shots, and Georgetown, their momentum, the statistics all completely favored Colorado, but I just went strictly with, Georgetown surprisingly won the Big East tournament, so I thought maybe they could ride that hot streak, kind of like Oregon State did, as you guys probably saw, and so, but Georgetown, their luck ran out, their momentum ran out right here against Colorado, and I got it wrong. So Florida State, UNC Greensboro, I don't think many people had this 13-4 upset. They might have had others, but not this one. Florida State was up for most of the game. UNC Greensboro was hanging in there, but it never looked like the result was in doubt. So congrats to Florida State for hanging on to win, as most people expected. BYU, UCLA. Now, UCLA surprisingly beat Michigan State in the first four. I think a lot of people thought Michigan State would win that game. I said the winner of that game would beat BYU. It didn't matter who it was. I thought both of them could beat BYU. I just feel like statistically, most years, like I said in my last video, a first four team normally wins another game other than the first four. They advance at least one more round, and so UCLA was the team that did that this year, so congrats to them on doing that. All right, Texas Abilene Christian. Now, this was one of the biggest upsets. This was a shocker. I think a lot of people, actually, because Michigan's vulnerable because of Isaiah Livers' injury, I think a lot of people liked either Alabama or Texas to come out of this region and get to the Final Four, but I feel like a lot of people, I bet you Texas was probably the favorite to come out of this region, or they seem to be like the pick for a lot of people to make it out of this region and get to the Final Four, but they played a horrible offensive game. Abilene Christian, credit to them, they defended really well, and they won an ugly, low-scoring game that came down to the last second. So that was a really surprise. That was a shocker. That was crazy. UConn, Maryland. This was a little more than 50-50. I really thought UConn had the edge here because they had James Bouknight, and they seemed to be capable of going on a run. But Maryland pretty much front ran and surprised a lot of people, and they won pretty comfortably. That score's a little deceiving because they were up by double digits most of the game. Alabama, Iona. There were a small group of people who thought maybe Iona could, pull off the upset because Alabama relies a lot on threes. If the shots aren't going, they might not play that well. And maybe Iona, with an experienced Hall of Fame caliber coach in Rick Pitino, could maybe have a little upset up their sleeve, but it didn't happen. Alabama, they hung in there, but Alabama pretty comfortably won. All right, moving on to our South region. Baylor, Hartford, the 1 versus 16. You got to go with the 1. You're really taking too big of a risk to even go with the 16. Comfortably won. Baylor did. No need to expand on that. All right, North Carolina, Wisconsin. This was, like, again, every 8-9 games kind of like a 50-50. But I thought because North Carolina was the better rebounding team, I thought they had the edge here. But not only did Wisconsin win, which did somewhat surprise me, but they won by a lot, which really surprised me. They were just shooting the lights out. If you shoot like over 50% from 3 for one game, you can win it. The thing about March Madness is, you can have one bad game. You're not necessarily you're not the worst team if you lose one game. That's the thing, is the best team doesn't always win March Madness. If you want to find out who the best team is, you play a 7-game series or any series where you have to win more than one game. But that's what makes March Madness great, is it's just who plays better for one game. That's what makes it chaotic. Wisconsin, they just shot the lights out. And, I found out that their starting lineup in terms of age is older than like the Chicago Bulls starting lineup, which was crazy. And to me, experience goes a long way. I probably should have thought about how much experience Wisconsin has, and maybe that would have factored into my decision, but I got that wrong, unfortunately. Winthrop, Villanova, a lot of people like this as a 12-5 upset, because Winthrop was 23-1. They pretty much were completely dominant in their conference. But they had like a kind of like a triple-double machine, Penny Hardaway like point guard and Chandler Vaudrin, and they shoot the 3 very well. And Villanova has key injuries, and so people thought this could be an upset, and they hung in there. But Villanova, with Jay Wright, I should never doubt Jay Wright. They pulled away, so congrats to them. I did not think they would, but it's not too shocking. Of course, they were still favored, but I thought that their injuries would cost them, and Winthrop had a lot of firepower, and they showed out. They didn't it was a close game, but Villanova ultimately hung on to win. And all right, moving on to Purdue and Texas. Now, I actually thought Purdue was vulnerable. I thought they had a decent floor. Like, I had them as a Sweet 16 team, but I thought that they didn't have a high ceiling. I thought there was almost no way they would get to the Elite Eight. And if they got to the Elite Eight, I thought there was no way they could beat Purdue. They weren't like a good Final Four pick or anything like that. I thought the best they could do is Sweet 16, and that was like they were kind of like a decent floor, not really high ceiling at all team. So I thought they were vulnerable to get upset to North Texas, and they did. Javion Hamlet, who was their best player and led the nation in floaters, which was a stat that people were throwing around. I was like, who cares? But it actually factored into that game because he made a ton of floaters and was ultimately the difference. So I should have took that statistic a little more seriously. But yeah, I got that wrong. Texas, Utah State, actually, okay, so most 6 versus 11 matchups are they're pretty even, like sorry, hit the mic there. They're pretty 50-50, but this one seemed to be like definitely favoring Texas Tech, and both teams are defensive minded, but I thought because Utah State had a little bit better shooting overall on the perimeter, 3-point shooting, and Neemias Queta, their center, was a big presence, I thought maybe he would be the difference, but Utah State just ice cold this game. They were up like 6 points in the second half. Texas Tech went on like a 15-0 run or something, never looked back, so I got that wrong. Arkansas, Colgate, I got this right, but I was thinking about maybe having Colgate as an upset victim here because they were 15-1 and they really have a great offense, and they were up by like 14 points this game, and I was like, wow, I should have picked Colgate, come on. But then Arkansas went on like a 17-0 run in like the last 4 minutes of the first half, and they surprisingly went into halftime with a lead, and they just pulled away at the end. So that score is deceiving because Colgate looked like they had the upper hand in this game for almost the entire first half of the game. So, but yeah, I did get that pick right. I did have Arkansas winning. I have them going to the Elite Eight. So, all right, Florida, Virginia Tech. This was the first game of the tournament and a great first game at that. It went to overtime, but it really was a toss-up, and I had Florida winning, and they did end up winning in overtime. All right, now this next pick, Ohio State and Oral Roberts. This is the pick I am the most proud of. What a story Oral Roberts has been. I picked them to not only upset Ohio State, but later on the next round to beat Florida and get to the Sweet 16. Not only was I probably one of the only people on the planet who had Oral Roberts beating Ohio State, I might have been literally the only person on the planet who had them beating Florida as well and getting to the Sweet 16, and that actually happened. I told you guys, Max Abmas, the leading scorer in the country, great offense, great free throw shooting, great 3-point shooting. Kevin O'Banner is like a superstar as well. That tandem just carries the team. Their offense is elite. They can hang with anyone. I saw it, and the fact that it actually came into fruition is like, screw the fact that my champion's out and all that stuff. I got this right, and that pretty much makes up for all the wrongdoings and for the rest of the bracket, because the fact that I actually predicted that, I got to give myself a little pat on the back there. I really felt there was something special in Oral Roberts. So yeah, for that to actually happen was pretty awesome. So that's the pick I'm the most proud of. Yeah, it was bold, but I was actually fighting in my video. I thought, okay, I'm gonna be bold and have them beating having a 15-2 upset. That's bold enough. But I was like, you know what? Florida's not that good. If they can beat Ohio State, they can beat Florida or Virginia Tech, and they did in a close game, great game. I'm looking forward to seeing what Oral Roberts does against Arkansas. They're the story of the tournament, to be honest. So that should be great. Illinois Drexel, they beat Drexel. I didn't even watch a second of this game, even though they were my champion. I didn't even worry about that. But I would watch the next game, unfortunately, because but I didn't enjoy watching the next one, as I'm about to talk about in a little bit. Loyola Chicago, Georgia Tech. I just felt like Georgia Tech had their best player was hurt, and Loyola Chicago is always sneaky, as as you guys know, and so I had them winning this game. They did end up winning. Oregon State, Tennessee. I said I had all four number 12s winning, and they did beat Tennessee. Tennessee looked terrible the second half of the year, to be honest with you. Oregon State riding a hot streak. They won this wire to wire. It wasn't even that close. It wasn't close of a game at all. I think they were up double digits the whole game. Oklahoma State, Liberty. I had Oklahoma State. And they ended up winning a close game because Liberty is a good 13 seed, but it would be hard to beat Oklahoma State with Cade Cunningham, so I got that right. And now the next pick that really disappointed me, San Diego State, Syracuse. I actually thought San Diego State, if they played a 7-game series, maybe they'd win. But for one game, Jim Boeheim, that zone he set up for Syracuse, or Syracuse's zone, San Diego State couldn't figure it out. I mean, that was so frustrating to watch. They went like 10 minutes without scoring at all this game. They were just stuck on the perimeter. They couldn't drive like they normally do. They were just out. It looked like they didn't even watch film this game. I mean, and Syracuse shot the lights out. So they had a great game, and San Diego State just had no chance. West Virginia, Morehead State. West Virginia, obviously, as you can see, when they lost to Syracuse the next round, I wasn't high on them as a 3 seed. I thought they were going to lose to San Diego State. But, Morehead State didn't really have the firepower to pull off the upset. So I did have Morehead State losing to West Virginia, and that's what happened. Rutgers, Clemson, this was another 50-50 game, but I did have Rutgers winning because I felt they would be motivated by the fact that it's been so long since they've been in the tournament, and that's exactly what happened. They won a close game at the end. Houston, Cleveland State. I said this would be, it would take a miracle for Cleveland State to beat Houston. They just don't have what it takes to pull it off. They don't have the Oral Roberts kind of firepower. And yeah, so that's why they lost to Cleveland State, and that's why they beat Cleveland State, because Cleveland State would need a miracle to pull it off. All right, next, the second round, Gonzaga, Oklahoma. I had Gonzaga. Oklahoma doesn't really have a chance against Gonzaga. Creighton, Ohio. I thought, I had UCSB in the Sweet 16, so it didn't really matter to me. I thought Ohio had what it took to beat Creighton because they beat Virginia, and they have like really good Jason Preston, really good point guard for Ohio. Great story. I thought they could continue the run and beat Creighton, but kudos to Creighton. I underestimated them. They're in the Sweet 16. USC and Kansas. I did have USC upsetting Kansas, and boy, did they upset them. They destroyed them. They won by 34 points. It wasn't even close the whole game. Kansas, they have very good players as always, but this year they didn't. I feel like they didn't have that firepower to really go far. I feel like they had a lot of very good players, and Bill Self did a great job. They were hot towards the end. That's why they got this 3 seed. But I felt like it was a little deceiving because this isn't one of those Kansas teams that, like, it seems like most years Kansas is a contender, but this year it didn't really feel like they were a great 3 seed or a dangerous team. That's why I thought USC would match up well and beat them, and that's exactly what happened. And this one hurts me because in my second bracket, which you guys didn't see, I had Iowa winning the championship, only because I really like Luka Garza. I'm just a big fan of his, and he played great. He had 36 points, but they could not even play a lick of defense against Oregon. It was actually a bad matchup. I was kind of scared of this matchup because the only way, in the Big Ten, the way they won games was they just outscored pretty much every other team in the Big Ten, but they could not outscore Oregon because Oregon's strictly offense as well. It wasn't a good matchup for them. Luka Garza, he did have 36 points, but unfortunately, they went out in the second round, which does hurt me because I'm a big fan of his. And yeah, Big Ten really playing bad in this. Really had a horrible tournament so far. I mean, like except for actually Michigan, because most of the Big Ten is. I actually think Michigan's the only Big Ten team still in the tournament, and they had like the most bids. They had like 9 teams make it. All right, Michigan, LSU. A lot of people thought, whether this was LSU or whether this was St. Bonaventure, a lot of people thought that Michigan would lose this game to either LSU or St. Bonaventure, including me. But it was a close game. But kudos to Juwan Howard and Michigan. He did a great job of coaching, and Michigan has gone. I don't think they're going to get to the Final Four, and I don't even think they'll beat Florida State. But just to get to the Sweet 16 without a key player of theirs was pretty impressive. So congrats to them. Kudos to them. And all right, Florida State. Yeah, moving on to Florida State and Colorado. Florida State's just very fundamentally sound. I really was high on them. I have them going to the Final Four, and so that run continues because they beat Colorado. They defended very well, and they were ahead for most of the game, so there wasn't a doubt. UCLA, Abilene Christian. Abilene Christian, congrats to them on pulling off the upset, but I really felt like they had no chance against UCLA because Texas really played like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of bad in that first game. They played horrible. If they could have that game back, they would if they played that game 100 more times, they'd probably beat them 100 times, but they couldn't score. Obviously, Abilene Christian did a great job defensively, but I felt like, unlike Oral Roberts, Abilene Christian doesn't have that offensive firepower they didn't have it to do it again and to pull off another upset, and as you can see, they only scored 47 points against UCLA. So UCLA's in the Sweet 16 as a first 14, which is pretty awesome for them. And I also, being from Southern California, it's, good news for me too, even though I didn't pick them going this far. All right, moving on to Alabama, Maryland. Alabama was ahead most of the game. They looked pretty good that game, and Maryland didn't really have a chance. All right, moving down to the, was I? Oh, no, okay, well, sorry. I thought I already did the South round of 32, but I didn't. All right, Baylor, Wisconsin. Baylor was ahead most of this game. They look really good, Baylor. I mean, I have them in the Final Four in like both my brackets, and I actually had them as the runner-up against Iowa, and they looked very promising. So congrats to them. Wisconsin's luck ran dry. Their shooting wasn't as nearly as good this game, and that's the reason why they lost. And Baylor's backcourt and offense is just great. They really do have a chance to win the whole thing. Villanova, North Texas. I feel like North Texas was kind of like a little better than Abilene Christian, but they were kind of reminded me of them in the sense that they pulled off that one upset, but they didn't seem like a team that was capable of doing it again. And Villanova, with Jay Wright, if they weren't gonna lose to Winthrop, they probably weren't gonna lose to North Texas, and they comfortably won that game. Arkansas, Texas Tech. This was a great game. Arkansas almost blew the game. They were up most of the game. Texas Tech made a run towards the end. It was kind of an ugly defensive battle, but Arkansas hung on to win. So congrats to them. Oral Roberts, Florida. I already talked about this. Oral Roberts. This was a great game. I was just jumping up and down. I was so excited about this game. They were down most of the game. Even up to with 9 minutes left, they were down 11 points. I was watching this whole game, and I was like, it was a great run just to get here. It was an honor. But I was thinking I was preparing for defeat, starting to think, maybe they just don't have what it takes. But guess what? They came back and won. Unbelievable, man. The Oral Roberts is the story of the tournament. We'll see how they do against Arkansas, but man, what a story just to be in the Sweet 16. I mean, following in the footsteps of the one other, or they're probably now alongside, not probably, they definitely are, them and Florida Gulf Coast, the two best 15 seeds of all time. Only Florida Gulf Coast, Dunk City, had ever gotten to the Sweet 16, but now they have company because Oral Roberts is in the Sweet 16. Unbelievable, man. Pretty crazy. All right, Loyola, Chicago, Illinois. This one hurts me. Illinois, I know Loyola had a really good defense, but they just shut them down. Io had a terrible game, and Kofi Coburn played well, but Loyola, Chicago with Cameron Krutwig just, dishing, throwing dimes everywhere, and just pretty much running the offense, and their great defense. They just front ran. They were ahead the whole game, and Illinois just couldn't make a run against them. That's just, how Loyola, Chicago's always sneaky, great defense. They just have a really solid offense with a lot of unselfishness, so they played a really good game. Congrats to them. Kudos to them. Oregon State, Oklahoma State. This is surprising. I thought Oregon State would beat Tennessee, and they did, but the fact that they beat Oklahoma State as well is very impressive. I think the two favorites to come out of this region were Oklahoma State and Illinois, and like I said, it was chaotic. Here they are, both at home. They're done. Both of them not even making it to the Sweet 16, which is pretty surprising. Syracuse, West Virginia. If I picked Syracuse, like I said in my Cinderella video, I thought Syracuse had Cinderella potential because Jim Boeheim always has something up his sleeve. Syracuse is seemingly always dangerous, even when they're a lower seed, as we've seen in the past. And I thought if I had to change my pick to Syracuse to beat San Diego State, I would have had them beating West Virginia as well. They did. It just seems like West Virginia, they're always good. They're very solid, but they're not good enough to really go like Elite Eight, Final Four. They don't have that kind of capability. So I felt like this would be an upset, and it was. Houston, Rutgers. Rutgers, they blew this game, to be honest with you. They were ahead the whole game. They had Houston on the ropes. And Houston was missing so many free throws. Rutgers was gifted opportunities to hang on to win this game, but Houston came back admirably, credit to them, and they won. So that sets up our Sweet 16. And so by the way, of course, you probably can see here, like I said, Illinois is my champion. But, before we make our Sweet 16 picks, which we're also going to make, I think I mentioned that already, just to let you guys know, there is some hope for this bracket because, as you can see here, Baylor, USC, and Florida State. I still have 3 Final Four teams in it, and 2 of these on the left, especially USC, are unorthodox picks. So if this Final Four actually happens, which it still could, and still has a decent chance of happening, because all 3 of these teams are alive, obviously, still in it. And the champion is someone that's like not because Gonzaga, a lot of people have them coming out of this region. Long story short, if this Final Four happens, I would have I think I'd have a really good bracket because, a lot of people don't have USC. Some people have Florida State, but not too many. Baylor's a common pick, but the combination of these 3, I don't think many people, like if I got this Final Four right, I think I could see my bracket in the 80th or 90th percentile. Even though Illinois is out, I think an unorthodox team would have to win the championship for that. But, there's still some promise. But obviously the one Final Four teams that is not in it is my champion, which really sucks. So, crazy year. All right, let's move on to let's do the Sweet 16 bracket. Let's move on to that. All right, we're back with the Sweet 16. Oh, I keep calling it the Sweet 16 bracket. It's really the second chance bracket. And boy, they always do this, but and I never feel motivated to do it because I'm like, no, my bracket's still live. But this year, I think a lot of us really need this second chance bracket because, our first chance for most of us didn't go well. I'm assuming for most of you it didn't go well. All right, so let's just make our picks. Because this year's been crazy, these picks could, like, a lot of these might not happen. So, but let's just do it for fun. Why not? All right, Gonzaga, Creighton. Gonzaga's just too good right now. If Creighton wins, this would truly be a big time upset. I just don't see it happening. It would be interesting, but in a crazy year like this, it's anything's possible. But I just don't see it. Oh, whoa, what happened there? Sorry about that. Yeah, I just don't see it happening. USC, Oregon. Now this is a really interesting Sweet 16 matchup. How about the Pac-12? By the way, I mean they're like 8-1 or something. 6 versus 7 in the Sweet 16. That type of year. I really liked USC in this game. I think unlike Iowa, they actually defend pretty well. If you defend Oregon and they have that inside presence, USC does. I just think right now they're the better team. They looked very convincing, more convincing than Oregon did, to be honest, against Kansas than Oregon did against Iowa. That's why I think USC will win this game. Michigan, Florida State, Michigan's impressed me. I'll give them that. They have been impressive, but I did have Florida State in the Final Four. I still think Florida State's better than LSU because they actually defend, unlike LSU. So I'm going to have Florida State. I'm going to stay with that pick. I have Florida State to win. Now, UCLA, Alabama. Okay, I have Alabama in my Elite Eight, but for some reason, I'm digging UCLA vibes. I don't know why. I think they're coming in hot. They defend pretty well. Alabama, I feel like they've been making their threes, but they rely so much on the 3 that I just think UCLA has the momentum. I think their luck's gonna run out. Obviously. Actually, not obvious. I mean, I think their luck's gonna run out against UCLA. I know that's a change of pace as to I didn't have this happening. I have Alabama as an Elite Eight team, and I probably should pick them, but I just have a feeling about UCLA. I don't know why. All right, moving on to Baylor, Villanova. Okay, Villanova to get here was pretty impressive. I underestimated them. Jay Wright, I should never underestimate him. But Baylor has looked really good, and there's nothing that Villanova has done to convince me that they're better than Baylor. Baylor just has that great backcourt. They have Shaggy, Matthew Meyer with the mullet as their kind of their stretch forward. They just have so much firepower. I don't see Villanova stopping it. Now, this is the game I'm looking the most forward to just because I just love Oral Roberts, man. What a story. Now that my bracket's busted, I just love to root for the underdogs, love to root for the stories. And, Arkansas is going to be heavily favored now that they had, there's an entire week off or almost a week off to prepare for a team like Oral Roberts. You would think ideally that Arkansas should be able to figure them out and win at least pretty comfortably. But I just have a feeling about Oral Roberts. I think they just have the duo of Max Abmas and Kevin O'Banner is just so impressive. Sometimes when you have one player that puts the team on the back, I can understand you scheme for this guy and you can, if you stop him, you probably win the game. But they have 2 superstar kind of players, the 2 super dangerous players that can put the teams on their back. I mean, I know Abmas is the leading scorer in the country, but O'Banner has scored more in the first 2 games, and they've combined for 75% of their points. They seem like right now the best 1-2, or they've been the best 1-2 punch in the tournament. So when you have 2 guys like that, it is really hard to stop, and they just have some kind of momentum about them. I don't know why. I know I'm going bold, but who cares? I mean, I just like Oral Roberts. You just got to ride. I want to. I'm just confident about them. I'm just riding the bandwagon, I guess, but I really like Oral Roberts. I don't know why. Okay, Loyola Chicago, Oregon State. What a weird matchup. If you had this matchup, comment below because I'm very impressed if you do. I mean, I don't think anyone had this matchup in the Sweet 16. I mean, this region's chaos. Look at this. 8 versus 12, 2 versus 11. We almost had Rutgers win, so we almost had 10 versus 11, 8 versus 12, which is wild to me. But I'm gonna have Oregon. You know, there's really Oregon State's coming in hot. Loyola Chicago, both came off impressive wins. This is really a toss-up for me. But you know what? I'm going to go with Oregon State. I think the Pac-12's done really well. And I think Loyola Chicago, their offense sometimes struggles. And I think Oregon State will have a week to prepare for Loyola's defense. And their offense, I think, is going to be tough to stop because they're just playing really well right now. I don't know why. I'm feeling some Pac-12 vibes this week. But what do I know? Who knows? Syracuse, Houston. Houston, honestly, like I said, as a 2 seed in my previous video, they aren't great for a 2 seed. This isn't a very top-heavy year. You have Gonzaga, Baylor, and Illinois. Those three were the clear favorites. But after that, I didn't see any 2 seed really, or even 3 seed. You have Alabama, and I don't think they have championship potential. I think the best they can do, and that's stretching it, is the Final Four. And then Ohio State obviously lost to Oral Roberts. And then the 2 seed, Iowa, they're out. And then what do you have? Arkansas is still left, but then in there, yeah, that's Ohio State's region. West Virginia's out. So we have only one 3 seed is left, 2 seeds. So it seems like one of those years where the 2 and 3s, and it's not very top heavy. That's pretty much what I'm saying. So I think Syracuse, if they can beat West Virginia and San Diego State, they can beat Houston. I just have a feeling that Syracuse is they have what it takes to beat Houston. I think Houston's a little overrated. They almost lost to Rutgers, so that tells you all you need to know. Okay, USC and Gonzaga. Now, if I'm going realistically, Gonzaga is going to win this game. They should be heavily favored if this happens. But I picked the USC in my Final Four, so I got to stay with that, right? And the Pac-12 has been great, so I'm going to stick with that. Hopefully that happens. But this is the one thing USC has going for them. If Gonzaga has one weakness, it's interior defense. Drew Timmy's really good, but he's not a great defender. And when you have the twin towers of Isaiah Mobley and, of course, Evan Mobley, 2 guys 6'10", one 6'10", and one 7 feet tall, that interior presence, both offensively and defensively, could be tough for Gonzaga. So it's definitely possible that it happens. And, maybe they just dominate inside. That gives them a chance to win, actually. I don't think, I wouldn't be completely blown away if USC won that game because they match up pretty well. So yeah, I had them in the Final Four anyways. I got to stick with them, right? All right, Florida, UCLA. Now, I have Florida State in the Final Four, so I'm going to pick them. I think they're better than UCLA. But, I think it'd be... If this is the matchup, Florida State versus UCLA in the Elite Eight, I'm happy either way, because either one way I get one of the teams that I had going to the Final Four actually get there, or I have UCLA, Southern California pride here. I have them going, and I always love a good Cinderella story. So that either way, it's cool if that happens. All right, Baylor, Oral Roberts. I really, really want Oral Roberts to get to the Final Four. And how crazy would that be? But, there has to be some element of keeping it, trying to be as, objective and realistic as I can. So if this happens, that would be so amazing. But if I'm trying to, really get the pick right, and I've already gone bold with USC over Gonzaga, I'm not going to get too crazy. So I'm going to have Baylor winning, and I also have them in my Final Four. But this is, again, another win-win, because if this happens and Oral Roberts wins, you get a great story like Oral Roberts in the Final Four. Who doesn't like that? And then if Baylor wins, hey, another one of my Final Four picks correct. All right, so Oregon State and Syracuse. This would be a very interesting game, but I'm going to go with Syracuse because Jim Boeheim, experienced, great coach. Syracuse, Buddy Boeheim shooting the lights out right now. They're just really hot. I think they look like one of the best offensive teams in the remaining in the tournament right now. I mean, they're just playing really well. So I like that, and I like Syracuse in the Final Four representing the Midwest region. They're kind of the Cinderella team or the double. Or a good amount of years, there's a double-digit seed in the Final Four. I think Syracuse will be that. So that sets up this wild Final Four of USC versus Florida State, Baylor versus Syracuse. Starting off here, Florida State, USC. This would be a great game, but I think Florida State, I had them in the finals, so I'm going to pick them as my runner-up. Or I picked them as my runner-up. I'm going to stick with that pick. But, this is another win-win, USC wins, Southern California pride. That would be interesting. I'd love to see that. And then Florida State, I have them in my bracket. Another win-win scenario. Syracuse, Baylor, 11 seeds or lower seeds, Cinderella teams, essentially all of them. They get to the Final Four, and then they bow out in the Final Four. They don't usually get to the championship game or win the championship. And Baylor has really looked good. They look like, after Gonzaga, they look like the best team, honestly. So I'm going to stick with that. So my championship is Florida State and Baylor. And I think right now, Baylor looks really good. And if you're not going to go with Gonzaga to win the whole thing, you might as well go with Baylor. So I have Baylor winning the championship. But, I'll probably be wrong because I was so wrong with the initial bracket. All right, I'm going to have them win, 74 to... 71. I think it'll be a close game, good game. All right, so Baylor wins the second chance bracket, but at the same time, what do I know? I could be 100% wrong. So let me know who you guys think is going to win the tournament from here on out. Let me know maybe your favorite moment, most shocking moment in the tournament so far. Let me know any opinion you have on March Madness because, you know, it's back. It has been great if you take away the fact that your bracket's probably busted. If it's not busted, congrats. But if it is, you know, you got to start rooting for the Cinderellas. You got to just appreciate the madness because this is what makes the tournament great is the parity, the upsets, the unpredictability. So it has been a great tournament so far. It's great to be back watching March Madness, you know, after not having it last year, of course. And we'll see how Baylor does. And yeah, make sure to leave a like if you like the video. Subscribe if you're a big sports fan. You know, I really appreciate and love all your support, guys. And as always, thanks again for watching. And I'll see you guys later. Oh, by the way, one quick thing, guys. You guys probably noticed this already, but I mean, you definitely noticed it. But this is the first video I'm using my green screen behind me. I'm sure now you can't see it, of course, because, you know, it's in effect. The green screen's being used, but you might have seen it in the intro. And yeah, I think that the background in my room is nice, but, you know, I think it's sometimes, I have better lighting with the green screen behind me because sometimes the lighting in my room gets a little weird. And, you know, a green screen, you know, it can never hurt. It's always nice to be blended into your background. You know, it's a nice aesthetic instead of having like a bunch of posters and a biased Lakers stuff behind me. So yeah, I think long-term green screen's a good option. So I'm glad I got that. And yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.